Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Barron, your host, and welcome to my podcast, That's Life, I Swear. Warnings of big heat waves such as El Niño are set to return in mid-2023. Now, scientists are saying that this phenomenon, coupled with growing climate crisis, is likely to push global temperatures off the chart. Let's jump into this. Now, I know people get annoyed at the sound of someone saying climate change is coming. Okay, fair enough. Let's go with inconvenient climate change. That sounds pretty different. That said, climate change isn't coming. You see, it's already here. So there's no need to beat around the bush. If you thought the deadly heat waves that have impacted many nations around the world in recent years were bad, well, guess what? They're about to get worse. In early May of this year, the World Meteorological Organization announced that data models show that planet Earth is on track to have the hottest year ever during one of the next 5 years, and that the planet will likely surpass a major climate change threshold. Now, those global temperatures that will jump to record highs over the next 5 years will be driven by human-induced warming, which means the burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas, which releases carbon dioxide, CO2, and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and a climate pattern known as El Niño, as forecasters at the World Meteorological Organization stated. Now here's some background on some data points. Earth's hottest year was set in 2016. During the next 5 years, 2023 to 2028, there's a 98% probability that the 2016 record will be broken big time. The Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. Now, I can go on with the list, but go to my website and read the transcript and you'll see. There's a lot of links there for you to click on to get more information. Now, why does this matter? Every degree of change in the heat brings new risk, even a fraction. The constant drumbeating of this inconvenient climate change bears repeating. Why? While most people think climate change is an important issue, they're not seeing it as an immediate threat. So getting people to go green requires policymakers, scientists, and marketeers to look at psychological barriers to change and what will lead people to action. I mean, the climate impact menu is getting longer, people, such as heat, and I'll get to that in a moment, pollution, increased droughts, more severe storms than usual, insufficient food production, and so on. Just as the cost of living goes up, so does the danger of this inconvenient change goes up. But let's get back to the topic of this episode. Scientists say even small increases in warming can exacerbate the dangers from heat waves, wildfires, drought, and other calamities. For example, elevated global temperatures in 2021 helped fuel a heat wave in the Pacific Northwest that shattered local records and killed hundreds of people. Again, the early forecasts suggest that El Niño will return in 2023 and continue until 2028, exacerbating extreme weather around the globe and making it very likely the world will exceed 1.5 Celsius or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the hottest year was recorded in 2016 was driven by a major El Niño. Now, such changes can cause further turmoil by shifting global and precipitation patterns. Now, it's been said that should we exceed the 1.5 Celsius during the next 5 years, that doesn't mean the world will have officially breached the aspirational goal in the Paris climate change of holding global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. No, when scientists talk about that temperature goal, they generally mean a longer-term average over 2 decades to root out the influence of natural variability. Forecasts for increased summer rainfall over the next 5 years will happen in places like Northern Europe, but there will be reduced rainfall in the Amazon and parts of Australia. Yes, weather patterns change over time as Mother Nature is allowed to do, but society continues to screw it up continuously. Any decrease in agricultural production could further spike food costs and exacerbate the state of food insecurity across the world. Now, many leaders have insisted on the 1.5 degree limit to keep the risk of climate change to tolerable levels, but nations have delayed in making the monumental changes necessary to achieve this goal, such as drastically cutting fossil fuel emissions. The scientists now think the world will probably exceed that threshold around the early 2030s. And that's not that far away, people. Global average temperature changes have already increased roughly 1 degrees Celsius during the 19th century, largely because humans keep burning fossil fuels and pumping heat-treated gases like carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But while that upward trend is clear, global temperatures can bounce up and down a bit yearly because of natural variability. For instance, a cyclical phenomenon in the Pacific Ocean, the El Niño Southern Oscillation, causes year-to-year fluctuations by shifting heat in and out of deeper ocean layers. Consequently, global surface temperatures are cooler during La Niña and hotter during El Niño. Now, the last hot year was 2016. Now, by contrast, La Niña conditions have dominated for most of the past 3 years. While they've been usually warm, they were still slightly below 2016 levels. Now, scientists are expecting El Niño conditions to return later this summer. Combined with steady rising levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, that will most likely cause temperatures to accelerate to new heights. At Columbia University in New York, Professor James Hansen said recently, "We suggest that 2024 is likely to be off the charts as the warmest year on record. It is unlikely that the current La Niña will continue a fourth year. Even a little futz of an El Niño should be sufficient for record global temperatures." Now we got to talk about some damage control here. One thing to know is the coming El Niño won't be cheap. The one that took place in 1997 and 1998, one of the most powerful in history, led to almost $6 trillion in income losses in countries around the world, according to a study published earlier this month by the journal Science. Even if every country met its existing pledges to cut greenhouse gas emissions to limit climate change, El Niño events could lead to $84 trillion, $84 trillion in economic losses by the end of the century. Think about that number. So what can we learn from the story? What's the takeaway? El Niño conditions are starting to form in the Pacific and are looking increasingly likely to take hold in late June and July of 2023. This could be the first significant El Niño since 2016. El Niño will greatly increase the chance of breaking the year's record-high global average temperature, particularly in 2024. It's a fair bet that nobody is going to be untouched by these changes that are coming. As stated at a UN press conference, regardless of what comes within the next 5 years, there's no return to the climate that persisted in the last century. And that's a fact. Yes, everybody, Mother Nature has a bone to pick with us, and it's not going to be kind. Well, there you go. That's life, I swear. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which you can find on either Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, for show notes calling out key pieces of content mentioned in the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you soon.